Hi, I'm Wilhelm. I'm delighted that you can join me to explore some very important questions like what is reality? What is good? What is bad? Who are we? And a lot of other important stuff. Many of the topics that I have covered in the other videos will come together in this new one. We sometimes have to step away from the tapestry of life to see the whole picture. I'm trying to attempt that right now.
Let us first look at the absolute reality, the eternal, infinite reality. This is the multidimensional spiritual cosmos with all the galaxies, the stars and planets. It is our spiritual home, also called the pure heavens. Central to this is God, who is energy and a multidimensional being with consciousness and will. And that's why I'm incapable of drawing God. Instead, I'm using the Swiss philosopher and theist Armin Risi's wonderful metaphor of the sun, representing God. The unconditional love, or being, or life, also consciousness and intelligence, of course, and God's will, which is the living in the unity with all that is. And we, as well as all of creation, are the sunbeams radiating from this sun. We are created out of the streaming light of God, just like a sunbeam. So we are not God, but we are part of God, and we are never separated from God. As these sunbeams, we were the co-creators who created and fashioned the ever-expanding spiritual universes. We did this in harmony with the will of God, meaning we were affirming and living the unity with all that is, the unconditional love. And by doing so, we lived in what I can crudely call constant bliss, ecstasy, or joy. That is our true state of being, our essence. We are total magnificence, nothing less. And in this absolute reality, we do have polarity, like up and down and right and left, but we do not have anything that we might call negative, like war or hate or pain, suffering, and so on. The reason is simple. The absolute reality is God, and God is absolute. The sun does not require the darkness to exist or to define or to experience itself, as some esoteric teachings tell us. The sun just shines, just like God is. That's all. God is. This here is our original home from where we came, our true divine existence, and the stuff we are made of. So why aren't we there right now? God has His own free will, and being His children, we also have our own free will, because we are part of God. We always have the choice whether we wish to follow His will or our own will. If we didn't have our own free will, we would be just like robots, and life for us would be basically meaningless. Eons ago, a tiny group of these sunbeams, meaning spiritual beings, turned away from their source, from God, from God's will. They no longer wanted to live for the well-being of all, but mostly for themselves. It was the beginning of the only me thinking, of the egoistic self-will versus God's will. In the scripture, we call this occurrence the fall. We can compare it to a huge orchestra where all the musicians play this beautiful and harmonious piece of music together. But suddenly some musicians decide to play their own tune. It would sound something like this. Naturally, these musicians have chosen not to be part of the big orchestra anymore. Now look what happened when we turned away from the light, or shut off the light that continuously flows through us and energizes us. We are actually blocking the light by turning away from the source. We become an obstacle, which now blocks the light, and the result is darkness. Here, dark, deep darkness. Space where there is no light, or little light. Having turned away from God, we are now facing this darkness. And what is our first reaction to what we see? Fear. We suddenly believe we are separated from God because we are facing away from God, because we have forgotten who we are in truth. This is our imagined state of separation. And with fear, our selfishness increases because everything now becomes a question of our survival. Some scientists claim that about 80% of our thoughts are directly or indirectly related to survival. We have chosen to no longer rely on the life energy from God, the source, and as a result we now have to find energy outside of ourselves from other sources. The Course of Miracles says it so perfectly. There are only two actions in life. One is giving love and the other is crying out for love. And this love is the same as energy, life force. Since we are no longer letting the love flow through us to sustain and nourish us, we now need it from each other. Life now becomes a constant battle for energy, from simple things like craving for other people's attention, for praise, recognition, to outright war. Collectively and individually, we engaged in constantly stealing energies, life force from others. All aggressions, all hate, all greed, all lusting, all envy, all pride, all gluttony, all fighting, and all suffering are battles for energy, for life force, because we feel empty. We have forgotten to live in the limitless abundance of God's will. This dark area here that we have created is the field of suffering. Our negative sensing, feelings, thoughts, and words and actions become bullets that we shoot on others. And these bullets eventually all come back to us as karma. Karma are the burdens of our soul. The karma is a blockage for the light. And the more burdens we have, the less divine light can shine through us and nourish us, and the more darkness we see and experience ahead of us. And the more desperate we become for survival. Therefore, our goal is to clean up all our karma here, and we do this by forgiving, asking for forgiveness, and no longer steal energy from others through negative feelings, thoughts, words, and actions that are contrary to God's will, which is the will of unity with all, also called unconditional love. This darkness here that we have created by blocking the light through us is called the relative reality. Because it is temporary and relative. The light is eternal, but darkness is only temporary. These are what is commonly called the temporary fall worlds, which includes the material cosmos with our planet Earth. We think of our material universe being so gigantic in size, but in truth it is absolutely tiny compared to the dimensions of our spiritual home. In this relative reality, we also have opposites. Some call them dualities, like good and bad. The things that we call good and the things that we call bad. But what is good and what is bad? Mother Teresa's view of what is good was very different to what Hitler thought was good for Germany. And the same applies for bad. Some see a terrorist as a bad person and others see him as a freedom fighter. Because in this relative reality, we have human judgments. And judgments are always based on our personal beliefs and our own view of the world. It's all relative. Our goal is not just to do good and avoid bad because they are judgments. Our goal is to transcend all duality and to become divine again. This means becoming totally conscious of who we truly are and living completely in God's will, which is divine love. It means to become active for the well-being of all without any expectations or rewards or recognition. Also, by undoing our karma and turning back towards God instead of away from God, our source. This is called our coming home, or homecoming. When we allow the divine light to stream unhindered through our spiritual and physical body again, we are the light. And we will only see light again, and the darkness that we created will automatically disappear. This is what enlightenment means. It means letting the light through. The challenge for us all is to remember all the time who we are in truth and turn our selfish thinking to the awareness of the all-unity of God. Thankfully, we have a wonderful example to follow. The highest light being ever incarnated, as the one we call Jesus, has shown us how to walk the path of divine love.
I really enjoyed making this particular video. Thank you for sharing your time with me.